It's a shame that nothing's been happening in sports lately, right, Swendeman?
Way too quiet. I mean, it's like snooze fest in 2025 right now. Nothing going on in the world of sports.
2 minutes real time. I'm Jim Monahan along with Chris Swendeman, and we've got so much to get to. Let's start with the World Series, which easily I think was one of the best World Series ever. And I'll start with this thought, Chris. If it's true that a playoff series does not get interesting until the home team loses, well, we're 4 games in and it's split 2-2, and the home team has won one and lost one. And you're looking at this going, whoa. So I'm not surprised based on those first 4 games that we got the finish that we got with a ridiculous game 7.
I, you know, I so enjoyed this way more than I thought I was going to, because as a Yankee fan, I really shouldn't be rooting for Toronto, but because of the Donnie baseball and meaning Don Mattingly connection, I was so wanted Toronto to win just to get him a ring. And if you ever thought there wasn't a passion and a love and a romance of sports and baseball, Bo Bichette going up after the series was over to a, sitting Don Mattingly as he just stared out onto the field, watching the Dodgers celebrate and just giving him a hug was one of the greatest scenes I've ever gotten to witness in sports. Just the compassion and knowing he didn't have to say a word. He knew where Don was and he just wanted to comfort him. He
It,
came so close.
it's
40
interesting
years in the game.
that you point that out about that Toronto team, because there was another thing that happened, and I'm not sure how many fans saw this. There was a Dodgers pitcher who had left. He was not in the World Series because of a personal issue. His wife was pregnant, and they did lose the baby, unfortunately. And you may have seen on many of the Dodgers players' caps the number 51. That was his number. You could
Yes.
see that on their caps.
Yep.
There were members of the Toronto Blue Jays bullpen who wrote 51 on their caps. And I have never seen anything like that. This is the pinnacle of Major League Baseball. It doesn't get any better than what's happening right here. You've made it to the World Series. Not only that, it's been an epic World Series. It's game 7, and you take a moment, like you talk about a brotherhood of athletes, but you take
Yep.
that moment to say, there are some things that are more important than life than who wins and loses. And you knew that the Blue Jays were invested in this. There was no doubt
Oh,
about it. You talked about Bichette's reaction.
yep.
You saw Vladdy Jr. with tears streaming down his face. You know how invested he was. You saw the manager of the Blue Jays
Yep.
afterwards, and just that resignation. You could see it. But in that moment, what the Toronto Blue Jays players did to me was just so inspirational at a time when we could probably use a lot more of that in this country.
Absolutely. I mean, it went, like you said, it went above and beyond sports. It was humanity, something we don't have enough of by any means. But you had so many storylines in this. Would Don Mattingly get his first ring after 40 years in the game? Clayton Kershaw's final curtain, maybe Max Scherzer's final curtain. You had so many different storylines. Otani, the biggest player in the game, going for another ring, pitching and hitting. It had so many different ways it could have gone. I, Toronto was literally 2 inches, Jim, 2 inches from winning the series. The the excitement over this all the way down to the end, an extra inning finale. It had everything you could have ever asked for in the game. And if you didn't watch the series and didn't get excited, baseball is just not for you, because this had everything you could have ever wanted in one series. Easily for me, top 3 of all time.
Yamamoto's performance for the Dodgers on the mound was just unbelievable. Watching what he did. Now, who throws complete games anymore, let alone
Right.
back to back complete games in the postseason? Who goes out and throws 96 pitches in a game and then comes back in game seven. Now, granted, there was nothing beyond game
Right.
seven, so it is all hands on deck. But watching him go through what he did in this series was absolutely incredible. And I'm looking at some of his pitches. He throws upper 90s, like he can sit
Right.
98, 99.
Yep.
His curveball is in the 70s. Like, okay, you try to adjust. Hitting a baseball, first of all, is
Right.
hard. And I work with a lot of young pitchers, and I'll tell them, listen, if we can get a 5 mile an hour difference between your fastball and your curveball, or your fastball and your changeup, we get 5 miles an hour. Oh, dude, you're golden. He's throwing a curveball that is 20 plus miles an hour slower than your fastball. That is just makes it completely unhittable.
Yeah. I mean, you had things that were improbable to happen, you know, at any game or any series that happened all in a 7 game series. You had a ball get stuck under the wall. You had a foot tag the plate 2 inches before the hitter's foot slid into home plate because of a late jump. It had so many things, and of course, you have stars on the Dodgers, Vladdy on the Blue Jays, but they were more of a tight knit group of hustlers. You have Mookie Betts, Otani, Freddie Freeman, Yamamoto, all these stars. Who gets the biggest hit of the game? Will Smith and Miguel Rojas, because of course that happened.
Of course it happens
Because of course it happened that way.
among all of these future Hall of Famers, because Otani is going to the Hall of Fame. And I know
Right,
Yankee fans
absolutely.
don't want to hear this. And maybe we can put this whole Otani, who's better, Otani Judge thing to rest. They're both amazing
Right.
players. They're both going into the Hall of Fame. But you've got him, Freddie Freeman. He's going into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Mookie Betts is a Hall of Fame baseball player.
100%.
I mean, watching this guy play baseball, he's an athlete. Put him in the outfield, put him at second base, put him at shortstop, put him wherever you want. This guy can flat out play the game of baseball. With all of these future Hall of Famers, like you just said,
Yeah.
look at these guys coming up big.
And another name I'll bring up for you that you have a lot of familiarity with, Kiki Hernandez. The guy just flat out balls once the playoffs come. He could go all year. You never hear from him or barely hear from him. All of a sudden, he's front page making plays with his glove, with his bat. The guy becomes all-star caliber player once the playoffs hit. It's like he hits an extra gear. It's like everybody is contributing somehow.
I
And
watched MLB Network early on Monday morning, and they're showing replays of various things. And that double play that ended, what was it, game six, right? That
Game six.
double play, watching him catch the ball, and then you see him take his eyes momentarily, go, where's the runner? Boom, in one motion, that amazing throw. I mean, that is just high level concentration.
it's just everyone showed out. It was almost like you didn't want to have one winner of this World Series because the Blue Jays easily were within inches of winning it in the bottom of the ninth, but the Dodgers they kept coming. And it wasn't just the All Stars. Every player brought their A game to this series on both sides. And somebody unfortunately had to lose, and it was the Blue Jays in extra innings, but it could have easily been the Dodgers, and they could have been one of the greatest teams to not win the World Series and get upset by a bunch of guys that just came together as a team and played their butts off to win the World Series in the Blue Jays. But the Dodgers, they were the team, and they found a way to win.
You mentioned, refusing to give in and refusal to lose. The Dodgers won 54 games where they had to come from behind. And that includes the playoffs 54 times this year. And Dave Roberts, who I think might be underrated as a manager in the postseason
Absolutely.
in his career,
100%.
he is 6-1 in games after a loss. He does a few unconventional things, but you talk about a guy who I'm sure they use analytics to the nth degree, no question about it. But you talk about a guy who's not afraid to use his gut. There he is right there. He's the poster boy for it.
2 words, Miguel Rojas. How else do you explain it? pinch hitting in that spot. Wait, to me, I looked at that. I'm like, maybe now's not the time to get everybody into the game. Eh, that's why I'm sitting here talking with you, and Dave Roberts is managing the Dodgers, because it's it's something you can't fake when you see moves like that. It's just not happenstance. They know what they're doing, and Roberts, he made it look easy.
Let's shift gears and turn to the NFL. Jets were off this weekend, so hey, they didn't win.
But they didn't lose.
They didn't lose. This is true. They come back next weekend. They're home to the Browns. And Jackson Dart, I mean, he was okay. The growth
Yeah.
process continues. 24 of 33, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think he
Yep.
also rushed for nearly 60 yards as well. Every week, you can see him improve little by little
Yep.
by little, but they were outmanned against the 49ers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you don't really need much when you have Christian McCaffrey playing for you. And I mean, he really balled out yesterday. But they have a solid defense as well. And I think Dart did as much as he could with what he had to play, to perform with. He's missing his top running back, his right hand guy, the Batman and Robin of him and Scatterbo. Neighbors is out. You know, offensive line has always been an issue for the Giants, so he's already behind the eight ball in a couple of different ways. I think he's done admirably for his first season. If you let him make his mistakes, let him grow, I think this kid's going to be something. And he's actually surprised me at how far he's come in such a short amount of time. I thought it was going to be a horrible, horrible idea to let this kid start behind that offensive line this year. Proved me absolutely dead wrong, because he's showing he belongs.
Quick release,
Yep.
poise in the pocket. That looking at this,
Does not
going, he's
get
got to be a
rattled.
third-year player. This cannot be
Yeah,
a rookie.
right.
Is
And
there
doesn't
enough?
get those happy feet. Doesn't he? He doesn't get that like that itch where the kid, he's got that clock, but he knows when to run and not when to panic, and he's got amazing poise for his age.
I just wonder if there's enough, if he's showing enough to save Brian Dable's job. And if the Giants were to let Dable go at the end of the season, what does that do for Jackson Dart's development?
Yeah, when you're talking about the third year, even though Jackson Dart's first year, 3 years in a row now, after week 9, they're sitting at 2-7. At some point, you got to say maybe it is the coaching, as you would say. Um,
I
you
smell
know,
smoke,
it's
Mr.
got to
Peabody.
exactly. It's got to be the coaching. But Joe Shane is involved in this as well. He's as Bill Parcells once famously said, you get the guy who buys the groceries. You get the sense that he hasn't really equipped this team with what they need. And I don't think Dable. I think Dable is a decent coach, but I think he made a lot of his a lot of his bones, so to speak, coaching Josh Allen, who, I mean, that's a rare talent. I think he just lost this team. I don't see them responding to him. I don't see them coming together to fight for him. And at some point, you just got to make a change. Not to make a change, just to make a change, but I just don't see this team responding to him. And I think at the end of the year, I think they are going to make, a change in the administration. And I think it should be both of them at this point.
The other thing that you and I wanted to touch upon, and I think the World Series pushed this way back, and that would be the NBA gambling scandal
Oh,
that broke a while back. This is a mess of obviously major proportion. Before you and I get into it, full
mhm.
disclosure, when I was doing mornings at WDHA, I had endorsements for DraftKings and
Yep.
BetMGM. Oh, I want to make that clear
Yep.
up front. I didn't make a ton of money from it, but nonetheless,
Right.
I do want to get that out of the way. They were a sponsor of the Morning Jolt when I did the show at different times. But
Mhm.
at any rate, what's happening is you obviously have a star player as coach. I mean, this whole thing that's got, and the mafia has gotten into it as well. And
And a
when you
Hall of
have
Famer, no
that,
less.
I'm sorry.
a Hall of Famer, no less,
Yes.
in Chauncey Billups, and now coach, or was coach. But I mean, it's crazy. This is I have been so glued to this story. I can't get enough of it because it's like watching a Martin Scorsese movie unfold in front of your eyes. Every day there's something new to it. And Jim, I think that we've talked about this off air. We've texted about this. This is going to get way bigger before it gets smaller. And I think there's a lot more that's going to unfold with this. I think you're going to see a lot more names. And I have a funny feeling it's going to bleed out not only to the NBA, but I think the big boy, the NFL, is going to get pulled into this. I think there's just way too much. They have way too many odd bed partners in gambling, and there's just way too many avenues for things to go awry. And I think they are behind the scenes. And I think there are a lot of people very nervous right now, and they probably should be.
Fans all the time with whatever sport it happens to be. Oh, the refs are on the take. So and so paid them off.
Right.
This team gets the calls all the time. But you watch different things, and let's go back 2 weeks to the Giants game. And I'm not saying anything
Right.
went on there,
No.
but the Giants have that lead, and it is an epic collapse. And it makes you wonder, like, what was going on there? Did the wheels just come off, or was there more to it? And again, I'm not trying to insinuate that anything was going
No.
on there, but when you have something like this, when you have Pete Rose involved, when you have the other face of baseball right now, Shohei Ohtani's name has been brought up. Michael Jordan had gambling issues. When you have these types of things going on, and now you've got this scandal where the mafia is involved, and all of a sudden injury reports factor in. I think I might come out of this game. Might not be. I can keep my rebound totals
My
under such and
my
such.
an- my ankle's hurting. I'm going to come out early, so my points per game is probably going to be under 16, probably because I'm going to come out in the first half because my ankle hurts. And I mean, the things that they know for a fact that they looped in celebrities and these basketball players, among others, apparently, into these high stake games that were rigged, that they never had a shot at winning.
You're talking about these
There
poker
was
games now.
these poker games. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I should have specified. Sorry, but that they had the invisible tables, the card rigging, everything. They never had a shot at winning these games, and they get into debt. And now, hey, listen, oh, you owe us money. Well, here's what you could do. I mean, this is big time. I mean, this is crazy at how much, at how much pressure these players were put on, because now they're in debt. How do you pay it off? Well,
And
so
this is
your ankle's
why the
not feeling
whole
really
Pete
good.
Rose thing was
Yeah.
so vital with what was going on. This is
Yep.
why it mattered. Because
Right.
first I didn't bet on baseball. Well, yeah, he did bet on baseball. Oh, I didn't bet as a player. I only bet on a manager. No, you did bet as a player too. Well, I only bet on us to win. Okay. Well, what does it say if you didn't bet on a game? You weren't going to win? Right? You
Right.
didn't think you had enough. Guy was injured.
Right.
This is why. This is why I will forever say I understand why Major League Baseball did what they did with regard to Pete Rose. It's a sign that's in every locker room, in every level of baseball. He knew what he was doing. I don't want to get off on a complete Pete Rose
No, I
tangent
get it.
here,
Right.
but he knew what he was doing. It was in every locker room that Pete Rose ever stepped into on the professional level. And let's add one more element to this whole thing, and that's going down to the college level. You have a lot of big name players
Yep.
with all this name, image, likeness money, all this
Yep.
NIL stuff
Oh,
going on.
oh
They're
yeah.
coming into the pro game with millions,
Hmm.
millions. Think any of them are gambling right now? And what
Easily.
happens if they are and they come into whatever league it happens to be? NFL, NBA, they
Right.
come in and they've got a massive gambling debt behind them. There are so many different layers to this thing. It's
Oh yeah.
almost mind-boggling.
I mean, Adam Silver right now, and I never thought Adam Silver, he didn't never really impressed me as a commissioner. Um, and now I'm starting to see why. Because if you let this much go on, and somebody had to know something. I don't believe that there was just all this going on and they didn't have doubts about things that could be happening behind the scenes because they're too into these leagues have people that security that look into all this stuff. They have security teams that have all this equipment and all this information at their fingertips to monitor all these things going on. And I just Adam Silver to me always kind of just I don't know if I want to call it wishy-washy or just passive, but now I'm seeing why I just for some reason did not like him, and I'm really curious to see where Goodell winds up with all of this and the NFL because they just can't be far behind because the NFL was so always out in front. Whether it was illegal back in the day, like where we grew up, everything was a backdoor or a guy you knew or some. If you wanted to put a bet in, now players can bet. They just can't bet on their own teams. Oh, okay. I'm sure this is going to go great. It just there's too many avenues for this to go wrong, and you're seeing it go very wrong very quickly. And why? If the mob's involved, and whether they are or aren't involved with any of these betting companies, is we don't know that, but they certainly know what they're doing and have a stronghold on maybe maybe not outcomes, but they know a lot of information going into games, which there's where your tilt is coming.
Major League Baseball Players Association head Tony Clark said recently that he is in favor of the elimination of prop bets in baseball through these various gambling sites. And he thinks but they're trying to be proactive here. He thinks that might
Right.
have an effect because the two Cleveland Guardians pitchers who were
Right.
suspended
Yep.
earlier this year because they threw a couple pitches that like, whoa, what happened there? And bets
Yep.
spiked. And how did they find out? Because as you just said, these teams, these leagues have people who are looking at certain things to see if they can
Yep.
pick up patterns on how bets are placed. So Major League Baseball, to their credit, is at least trying to do something. Genie's out of
Right.
the bottle.
Oh, absolutely.
The four major sports are all have some kind of betting partner.
Yep.
ESPN has one, as I mentioned. The Morning Jolt, not that we had a betting partner, but
No, but
we had sponsorships
right.
from those companies. This is not going away. It's going to need
No.
to be regulated, though, if we're going to have any faith in the product that we see on the field, on the court, on the ice being legitimate. Otherwise, let's just call it what it is and make it pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, because at this point, every time since this story broke, when I see a player that wasn't on the injury report during the week, but then all of a sudden Friday or Saturday pops up on the injury report, it's like things that make you go, because now everything's jaded. And like you said before, like people would say, "Oh, somebody paid that ref off," and you'd be like, "All right, stop." Like that. Now you're like, maybe they did, or maybe so something's just not right. And now we all know it. Now we all know there is something that isn't right. We don't know the extent of it, but it sure makes you question everything. I'll give you an example. Before we started recording tonight, before we jumped on together, I'm watching the start of the Monday Night Football game with the Arizona Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys. One of the players who is not playing for Dallas tonight, Jaden Blue, the backup running back, was he was taken out of the game tonight. He's not playing, and all it said was coach's decision. What is that supposed to mean? Now I looked at that and went, could be a personal reason, could be something, he could have missed practice or he could have, it could have been, but what else could it be? don't now everything just is up in the air. Like you don't trust it because look, we're seeing it. We're
Hmm.
seeing the information come out. So
It's happening in
it's
real
gonna be
time. It's
interesting.
happening right
It
in front of
really
our
is.
eyes. No question about it.
It really is. It's scary. It's very, very scary.
So, as we wrap things up on the 2 minute drill for another week, you know the drill that we tell you about. Like,
Yep,
subscribe, do all that. If you like what we do, tell a friend. If you hate what we do, tell an enemy. Just please tell somebody.
exactly. Do all the social media things, like, follow, subscribe, all the fun stuff.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Yep, you got it, Jim. Have a good one.